Good morning. It's Laoshi Lawrence McElroy from Water Tiger School here this morning on a Monday, June 1st, 2020. As always, I am hoping that this is starting. It seemed to be a little delay there when I hit the start button. So anyway, so we're doing these things on Monday morning, primarily, though not entirely, for the folks who are missing their Sachem Public Library program, for the program that's been suspended due to the current pandemic, but also for the greater community. So they have something to do if they want to at 10 a.m. on Monday mornings. Now, we've usually partnered with a Tuesday morning live session at 10:15 for folks who are missing their West Babylon Public Library program. However, that program is moving into the remote environment, or is scheduled to move into the remote environment tomorrow morning. If anybody's out there, could you let me know that you're there? Because I'm not seeing the live feed right now. So if somebody could give me a heads up, I would appreciate it. I'm going to do a check on my phone. I need to take it off of airplane mode. There we go. And let's see if I'm going to be talking to myself here. Dun, 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 dun. Nobody said hi yet. So I'm just looking to see if I'm talking to anyone. And oh, look, there I am. So I guess I'm going. I won't be able to see myself apparently. Oh, there we go. Hi, Colette. So I hope I keep myself in the frame, because again, I seem not to have a picture of myself. So anywho, I want to mention the shirt that I'm wearing. You might think, well, that's not really a Tai Chi shirt. And it's like, well, not really. I had initially planned on using it as a gateway to sort of use a scene from an episode of Star Trek that I could sort of tell as a temple story or a parable, because one of the things that we do, Water Tiger School does in its public programs and on the mat in the studio, well, remotely in the studio, is tell a temple story or a parable every once in a while. However, I got to thinking, given the state of current events, that I just use generally what Star Trek was about to address current events. And the fact that the Star Trek franchise has been going on for a long time, and I used to be, I think it was okay to call myself a Trekkie at the time that I was a Trekkie, but now I think I understand that that's considered a derogative term, and I'm not that sort of diehard fan. There used to be a time when I could, like, I'd see 5 minutes or 5 seconds of an episode and I could tell you what the episode was and what season it was. I can't do that anymore. That's sort of fallen on the wayside. However, the reason that, hi, Linda, that Star Trek has been around for as long as it has, and the first episode premiered in 66, I believe. So we're talking about 54 years ago, is the hope that it presented. The hope that we can get better, that humankind can improve, can evolve in their understanding of their humanness, that we can rise above. And it is crazy as the world was in 66, as crazy as the world has been for every aspect of the franchise since then, that things can get better. And within that idea, within that is a thread that's woven of different people coming together and working and living and loving seamlessly, that there is no separation, that we are all one. So that's the reason for the shirt this morning. So what we're going to do today, changing gears fast. Did you hear me double clutch that? Changing gears fast. We're going to do a little Qigong, a section of a little Qigong set. The set that I'm pulling this from is what Water Tiger School calls Awakening the Qi. It comes from a set by a woman named Linda Modera that she just simply called it the Qigong warm-up. And we're going to do the first 3 exercises, and they all involve tapping. And again, Ms. Modero, first tapping exercise, second tapping exercise, and third tapping exercise. I have, and Water Tiger School has specific names for them. So I'm going to get up and hope I am framed. Because again, just so everybody knows, I can't see myself, but I'm at my marker. So you should have hopefully a full view of me. We're going to start with just a little shake. So with the tapping exercises, all 3 of them, the preferred method is just sort of a lightly closed fist. So I'm not clenching or anything, it's just lightly closed. However, you don't have to do that. You can use the tips of your fingers as you tap. You can use the pads of your fingers as you tap. You can use your whole palms. Now, lightly closed fists are going to give you the most sort of, resonance inside your body. Sometimes we have to do that because there are two of the exercises we have to tap right here where the neck lowers into the top of the shoulder. So that's really hard for some folks to reach. So you may have to open your hand to reach that point, or you might be able to reach it with a lightly closed fist. But some people, I know that you might find this weird, but some people have tension in their bodies. And one of those places that tension can reside is in the shoulders. So a lightly closed fist, even tapping the top of the shoulder, can be too much on that tension. You think of a drum skin. If it's really taut, doesn't take much of a tap to make a sound. So the more tight this is, maybe the softer impact will be necessary. You'll need to open your hand. So either not being able to reach or painful, change the way in which you're tapping. Lightly closed fist preferred. Tips of the fingers, pads of the fingers and the thumbs, palms of the hand, whatever works. Back of the hand in some instances as well. So that's your basic tapping surface. We'll talk some other things about tapping here in a moment. I'm going to get back to my shake. So the other thing to keep in mind, we might all have some sort of sore spot somewhere in the body. So you have to decide for yourself, is tapping going to help waken it up, break up the stagnation, and help dissolve it? Or is it going to exacerbate the soreness? So you have to decide that on your own. And one last thing, if you have a medical device implanted somewhere, a port of some sort, if you can identify where the aliens put their alien implant in, you probably don't want to tap on that point. So for instance, the left in between the shoulder and the chest, that's a favorite part for some medical ports. So if one of the tapping patterns comes up the center line and out across, and it's also a tapping point for the first exercise as well, that you might want to be, tap toward it and then sweep down around it, or tap toward it and sweep out around it. If you can, keep the pattern, so you keep tapping across, just swoop down or up, that's better. But if you can, if you feel more comfortable tapping to a certain point and then going to the next, that's okay too, if you make that little jump. There are some other points that we'll talk about as far as the tapping goes. So that's sort of the basics of the tapping. The 3 exercises are activating the torso, stirring the ignored, and arousing the essence and increasing the flow. Arousing the essence and increasing the flow are 2 things in one exercise. So let me detail a little bit about activating the torso. We're going to have 8 different tapping points. So we're going to start in the front on both sides of the acupuncture point for the Shia Dantian, the lower abdominal cavity, here and here. The other the 2 next points on the front are both sides kind of around the Zhang Dantian point. So sort of the base of the rib cage area, left and right. And then here's the first time we're going to be tapping on these points. So This is going to be a direct tap to this point. So instead of going around something, just have to find like a lower position or a little bit higher position. Careful of the clavicle there. You don't want to tap, too much right directly into the bone. It'll cause a little issue probably with the bone, and it won't feel very good on your hand. So you may need to, again, miss those points. So from that point, those 2 points are sort of what we call the Tarzan position. The last two for the front part of the body, where I pointed out, right where the neck comes down and meets the top of the trap muscle, there's an acupuncture point on the gallbladder and spleen meridian. It's called the shoulder well. It's not that little divot in the clavicle, but right there, boom, boom, on the flesh. That's the point you want to reach, right? Not in front, not behind, not out here anyway, but right there. If you're a child of the 60s and you remember things like Secret Agent Burke, chop, that's right where the karate chop goes, or the old, was it high karate, Cologne or something? That's right where they did the chop, is right there, right where the neck and the shoulder meet. That's the front. The back pattern only has 2 distinct places. The first pair is an equivalent position to where we're tapping in front, but on the back. Both sides around where we identify the Ming Men point, which is the lower spine region, right there. The next 2 that match this position, and this position are just a little bit higher mid-back. And take a look and see what that is, just in case it's about this. No, something completely different. I'm going to see if anybody said anything about the video's working or not. No, everybody must be okay. Okay, so I'm coming back. And anyway, so here and here. So that's the tapping pattern for activating the torso. The Sangio, the triple burner, pathways of energy, acupuncture points, organs in the torso related to 3 processes: respiration, digestion, and elimination. So we're playing and working with the chi in those 3 areas as we activate the torso. So we want the feet about shoulder width. I think I still have a head here. Again, in case you joined us late, I don't have a picture of myself this morning for some reason, because, Facebook seems to be Facebook and it's doing everything it can to make the live sessions difficult for me. We're going to turn. Notice as I turn that the arms are just flinging from side to side. That's what I want. I don't want this muscularly driven. I want the intensity of the turn to bring the tapping into existence. So all I have to do is take the fling of the torso turn and target it to my different points. So we have that. To add to your flexibility, to add to the protection of the knees, what you want to do in the turn is bring up the opposite heel. So when I turn to one side, the opposite heel comes up off the ground. See my heel? When I turn to the other side, my opposite heel comes up off the ground. You got to be careful with how much you turn the loaded hip, because you can turn the weighted knee and you can end up with some knee issues. So just be careful with that. A word about the back. Now, most people won't have any issue tapping left to the right, and right to the left in front, but that might be an issue for some people behind. Currently reaching the right hand to the left side of my torso and the left hand to the right side of my torso. If you're not able to do that, now see what I'm doing. Right hand's tapping the right back, left hand's tapping the left back. Keep wanting to reach across. And that's fine if you need to do that. But I'd really prefer if the left hand goes all the way over to the right and the right hand goes all the way over to the left. And same with the second position. Well, second, third, and fourth for the back. All right, I'm going to do another little bounce here. Rearrange my pockets. We're going to start the first exercise. I do need this because I'm going to time the tapping points. Put this back in airplane mode because I failed to do that before. We're going to do a minute in each position. So And get this started within my line of sight. Another little shake, lightly closed fist if you can. We're going to start in 4, 3, 2, 1, and first position. See the intensity of the tap. Doing a nice light turn here. So I have a nice light tap. If I want to increase the intensity of the tap, kind of turn up the volume of the turn, of the twist, and that gets a little bit harder tap. Find what works for you. Again, I can do maybe the fingertips in front, back of the hand behind instead of the lightly closed fist. I can do palms of hands and back of the hands behind. I like the lightly closed fists most of the time. We're getting close. We're beyond the 30-second point in the first position. Breathing, relaxing, releasing, really paying attention to the resonance of the tap in the lower abdominal area and the lower back. Got about 5 seconds left before we go to second position. Breathing, relaxing, and releasing. Second position. So the base of the rib cage in front, an equivalent position behind. So mid-back, behind. And again, ideally, I'm reaching across the spine to the other side, but I can tap right on the right and left on the left. It's better to have the cross tap, but you got to do what you got to do. Breathing. I think I said that. We're 30 seconds into second position. By the by. Feeling those ribs relax, muscles, their grip on the ribs relax, the ribs open up. Don't want to tap too hard here. You don't want to break your rib and then drive a rib into an important organ, right? About 10 seconds left before third position. The Tarzan position. You're at home. If you're alone, if you want to do a Tarzan yell when we go to the third position, that's fine. And go in there. So between the breast and the collarbone. Again, if you have a medical port somewhere, then move that hand for the tapping point a little bit. Only one position left. Do a little bonus round in 2 ways. After we finish the whole sequence, we go back down, returning to each of the 4 positions for a little bit of extra time. And then instead of just stopping and setting up and doing the next thing, we end this tapping exercise with a little fade. We got about a little over 10 seconds left in third position. Remember this fourth position, right at the base of the neck. You may have to tilt your head sideways a little bit to actually open up the space for that tap. 2 and 1. Boom. See, I'm tilting my head to one side a little bit so I can really open up and activate that acupuncture point to accept that tap. This is the fourth and final position. We're going to play back down through the body. We'll do an extra, say, 10 seconds in each of the places in front that we've tapped, because we're still tapping the same height behind, mid-back, by the way. Just a reminder there. I haven't gone any higher. I haven't gone back to the lower of the 2 positions behind. Woo! Just made myself dizzy, turning so fast, not turning my head first. Got about 15 seconds left before we go into the bonus round. In activating the torso from Water Tiger Schools, awakening the chi. Breathing. We're in the 10-second bonus in 4th position. Again, letting the intensity of the body fling the arms, and now 3rd position. This ain't the exercise. That's all arm driven. I want to be like, oh, darn, I should have brought my Japanese pellet drum with me to today's session. Back to 2nd position. Talking through the 10 seconds there, so I blew that. Because it's just like the Japanese pellet drum. Back to 1st position, so both sides of the Shia Danxia and acupuncture point below. Both sides where we put the Ming Men on the lower spine behind. And we've had our 10 seconds here. So now, since the intensity of the tap is governed by the intensity of the turn, so I start to soften the intensity of the turn, tapping those last 4 points. It's a little bit softer and a little bit softer. And I get to that point, I'm not covering enough space with enough of a turn to bring the heels up off the ground. I'm not covering enough space with enough intensity to even bring the hands up to those last 4 points anymore. But I'm still turning. And the idea is to continue this turn on a slow fade. Now, obviously, the feet have been grounded, but I can still feel a little bit of a weight shift, a little bit of a change as I turn left and right. The arms are still swinging, and the goal here is within reason, so with some governance. I'm not going to go on forever. I continue the fade in such a way that that final transition from actual external physical movement to actual external physical stillness is so imperceptible, so subtle, that it is not only naked, not apparent to the naked eye, somebody watching, but also difficulty for you yourself to determine if you've really stopped tapping. Once you can identify that stillness from the motion, external, then just take a moment and feel what there is to feel. Feel the points on the front and behind. You've been tapping the flesh, the muscle, the bone marrow, the organs in those areas. Feel your hands. Your hands have been doing all the tapping. Are they reverberating as well? Are they not? Noting it, letting it go. And that's the first exercise. And that's activating the torso from awakening the chi. And again, if you're joining us a little bit later into the session, for whatever reason, I'm not seeing myself at all today. I actually did a test run about 20 minutes before the top of the hour to make sure everything was fine, and everything was fine. And then it wasn't. But at the beginning, I did bring up the session on my phone. I could see myself that I was talking and that sort of thing. So I'm assuming it's working, and nobody said otherwise. So the second exercise, stirring the ignored. It's another tapping exercise. It's a little bit more static. It's a little bit more arm driven. So you may have to switch from the lightly closed fist. Maybe the lightly closed fist worked fine for activating the torso. And because we're like just standing here whacking ourselves, the lightly closed fist doesn't work in stirring the ignored. That's fine. The feet are stationary. We're not turning the torso. There are a couple of things about what you should know. One is that, the name again. Ms. Modero called this, I believe, the second tapping exercise. We call it stirring the ignored. We're working specifically with the gallbladder and spleen meridians in this tapping exercise. Couple of organs that, until something goes wrong with them, we don't really think about them very much. And two, we also start, our first point is right at that bottom of the V of the armpit, right there. Now, aside from those who do some self-grooming in the armpit area, we don't think about our armpits very much. So 2 reasons, one serious, one not so serious, about why we call this exercise stirring the ignored. The pathway, and one side and the other, and I need to remove my stopwatch here because it's in the pathway. See if I have a knot, probably, as always. There's a knot involved. I thought I was going to get it, but I didn't. So, there we go. All I had to do was stop trying to untie the knot, and the knot untied itself. I can't tell you how many times that has happened with things like that. So the pathway starts here. We're there for a certain amount of time. We'll probably do a minute. That's the plan anyway. Then right straight down from the base of the armpit to the very top of the hip, not to the side of the hip at all, but right at the top of the hip. It's another acupuncture point on the gallbladder, spleen meridian. A little swoop down to the center line in the Shia Dantian. And by the way, after we leave this point, it stays fluid There's no real scheduled stop. I say that because if you get, like halfway down and that point really feels what I call thirsty, like it really needs some attention, go ahead and keep tapping there. Just remember the rest of the pathway, down to the top of the hip, swoop to the Shiadantian acupuncture point, up the center line. You may have to soften the intensity of the tap over the solar plexus area because of the nerve bundle there, right? So if you hold a lot of tension, tapping there maybe causes a little bit of pain. And right above that, no one should tap themselves very hard over the center of the chest. No one. You get to the base of the throat, out between the breast and the clavicle again. And, maybe swooping down, maybe swooping up if you have a medical import device on one side or the other, or an alien implant or something. And then down, what we refer to as the inside of the arm, the top of the biceps on that side, the elbow fold to the base of the wrist, not into the hand. Turn the wrist over, up the top of the forearm, what we call the outside of the arm, the outside of the elbow fold, the outer side of the biceps and the triceps, up over the top of the shoulder, and we're back to that shoulder well point for about 30 seconds. Then we do a little massage, then we do something else, and then we get to the other side. So that's the pattern. I need a little drink. Fortunately, all I have is iced tea. So, need to set the timer again. Stirring the ignored from Water Tiger Schools. Awakening the Chi. Oh, hold on. Break. Stop. False start. One other thing. Until we get to the front of the shoulder, so from here for the minute to here, this arm should be in the air. That can be a little bit tough for some people. It might put tension in the shoulder, which might mean you're doing this instead of this. What you can do there is just hold on to your head. So the weight of the arm is supported by your head. And if you have hair, by the way, this is my second COVID-19 haircut. COVID-19 part 2, the return of the beard trimmer. So holding on to the head is fine, right? So if you need that or hair, that's okay. But ideally, you should let the arm float out there. Now we'll start. Exercise 2 from awakening the chi, stirring the ignored. Right there, right at the base of the armpit. Again, if I need to do if I feel better with the points of the 5 of the wand or the 4 of the wand, if I feel better with the pads, if I want to use the palm of the hand, that's okay too. I prefer the lightly closed fist. We're 15 seconds in. Breathing. You don't have to stand still here, do a little dance. That's probably a little bit too much action. 30 seconds in. Breathing. Sort of like before when I mentioned, feel the the reverberation. There we go. That's the word for which I was searching. The reverberation of the tap inside the chest cavity on that side, the ribs, muscles surrounding the ribs, the lung, getting some activation there into the heart chamber. Breathing, relaxing, releasing. 3, 2, 1. The pathway begins. Right from the base of the armpit, just to the top of the hip. Some people, maybe the top of the hip, they want to hang out there for a while. That's okay. Just remember, we do this little half smile down to the Shiadantian acupuncture point, more or less. Up the center line, maybe softening over the solar plexus. This is why I take off the stopwatch, because that's exactly where it hangs. Definitely softening over the center of the chest. Coming to the base of the throat, going out between the breast and the clavicle, right? That's the bone there. Front of the delt, lowering the arm, tapping down the inside of the arm, the top of the biceps, the eye of the elbow. The tenser you are, the less intense your tap has to be. The more tension you're holding, the less tension you're holding, and switch it over. Be careful of the wrist bones there. A little bit less flesh on the top of the wrist than the underside of the wrist. Same sort of going into the top of the forearm as opposed to the bottom of the forearm. Careful there. The more relaxed you are, probably the more intensity you have to put into your tap. The outer side of the elbow fold. The outer side of the biceps and the triceps. Over the top of the shoulder. And here we are at the shoulder well. Now, because we're doing this static tap, like you could grab your head in the first part of this, you can hold that working arm's elbow to release tension in this shoulder. We're here for about 30 seconds. Didn't really see where we started, but I feel like we're about 10 seconds in. Again, you may have to open up just to reach that point where the top of the shoulder meets the decline of the neck. Breathing. In about, let's see, 5 seconds, we're going to switch to a little massage of the shoulder. You can play a little bit around the top of the shoulder here now, switching to the massage. So you don't have to stay focused entirely in those 30 seconds on that shoulder well point. You need to spend most of your 30 seconds on the shoulder well acupuncture point right there. But you can also tap around different parts of your shoulder. Really get in there, really knead the pads of the fingers into the flesh. Don't pinch, work into the flesh. And now, like a squeegee, a single cleansing wipe down that arm, all four sides as much as possible, to the fingertips, and a flick of both hands. Need to reset this. And do that and start on the other side. Hand up. Maybe you didn't hold on that side, you need to hold your head on this side to keep tension out of that shoulder. That's fine. But if you can do this, great. More power to you. Maybe you could do the lightly closed fist underneath the armpit on the other side. And here, you need something a little bit softer. The left isn't the right isn't the left. Breathing. Keeping this shoulder relaxed too at this point. You don't want to start building tension in either shoulder. We're 30 seconds in. Breathing, relaxing, and releasing. There's 45. Almost home for the, well, not really home, almost ready to leave home. Because in 4, 3, 2, 1, we begin that pathway down from the base of the armpit to the top of the hip, not into the side of the hip. A little half smile down to the center line on the lower abdominal cavity, more or less where the Xia Dantian, the lower field of elixir acupuncture point is. And at any point in this pathway, maybe hanging out and tapping somewhere for a while. Maybe softening over the solar plexus because of the nerve bundle there. Definitely softening over the center of the chest. Right at the base of the throat, out between the breast and the collarbone. Front of the shoulder, arm drops down. Going down the top of the biceps, what I refer to as the inside of the arm. The eye of the elbow. Down the forearm. Right to the wrist fold, but not into the hand itself. Flip it over. Careful of the bones there. Right, a lot less flesh on the top of the wrist for most people than the bottom of the wrist. Same's true, by the way, coming up over the outer side of the shoulder. There's the side of the elbow fold. There's the side of the biceps and the triceps. Outside of the delt, usually a lot of flesh. Right there at the descent and right in the top of the shoulder, not so much flesh, so be careful there. And we're 30 seconds here. No fade in this one. There's a fade in the third one. Arousing the essence and increasing the flow. About 15 seconds in. Again, I can go, I can go to the back of the shoulder a little bit here. I can go a little bit to the front of the shoulder, back out a little bit, but spend most of your 30 seconds right in that V, right in that angle. Switching to the massage. Getting deep into the flesh here, not hanging out in the surface. Breathing. Relaxing. Breathing into the massage itself. Breathe into your bone marrow. It's like you're even stirring the bone marrow of your shoulder at this point. And then a single, like a squeegee going across a window. And all that stale chi that's risen to the surface. Taking it, bringing it off the surface of the arm, flipping it. And Rich, if you're out there, you're probably thinking, I'm not going to stand, I'm not going to step over there because that's where the bad chi is. That's not really a concern. It's actually a pretty funny joke. But anyway, so let the arms hang. Deep breath, feel what there is to feel. If you feel something, great. What is still resounding? What's still echoing from the tapping? What's telling you, yeah, I wish you would have spent more time with me. So you can go back after the exercise and spend time with those points. Figure out why some are hungry, why some are just like, a dead zone. Important to investigate those observations. But for now, just note them and let them go. And that's the second exercise of our 3. That is stirring the ignored. I just need to check my time here. I'm sort of on a schedule this morning. Yeah, I'm doing fine. So our third exercise is arousing the essence and increasing the flow. We're going to be dealing both with kidney energy, the essence door, the Shen Yu, on the lower back. So we're going to arouse the essence and we're going to increase the flow. Now, in Western medicine, the liver is associated with the flow of blood through the body. The blood is considered the mother of the chi. So if we are working with liver energy, we're working to increase the flow of chi through the body, more or less. So again, this was the third tapping exercise, I believe, from Linda Modero, from her Qigong warm-up, and it's awakening the chi for us in this exercise is arousing the essence and increasing the flow. So there are some things here that I need to address. Again, lightly closed fists if you can, but you can open the hands. However, regardless of the lightly closed fists or the open hands, the tapping surface will be the sort of ridge hand side of the hand. So the thumb, the tiger's mouth area into the index finger, tapping in the lower back. Sort of, again, both sides of the Ming Men, maybe a little bit higher. Sort of like the shoulder at the end of the previous exercise. If while I'm hanging out there, I want to go around some other areas, that's fine. We want to stay primarily in targeting this area. And we're only going to do that for 30 seconds. And the reason only for 30 seconds is this is another tough position for people on their shoulders. Right? And by the way, you can do these sort of static tapping points where we're hanging out, even when it's not really a static tap, but there's a lot of movement. I'm hanging out in that lower band for a while. You can judge when to go to the next place 3 ways. You can count. So, I'm going to do 24 taps on everything. So there's 24 pairs here, and then 24 pairs here, then 24 pairs here, etc. You can time. I do, depending upon the situation, I'll do 30-second times or 60-second times. Everything when I'm doing this in a public class sort of save time is usually compressed to everything's 30 seconds instead of some a minute and some 30 seconds. You can go longer. The way that when I do this set for myself is I tap somewhere until I feel like it's done. That could be, I could boom, boom, boom. Everything feels great there. I'm going to go to the next one, then hang out here for 5 minutes because that's what I need. So those are the 3 methodologies for determining how long to tap. I use the clock because I can't do all this talking and keep track of where I am in the exercise. So anyway, these are the first 2 points. Hang out there for 30 seconds. Roll then to there, to where we've been more or less tapping. Across the top of the buttocks to the sides of the hips. Now, definitely the sides of the hips, not the tops of the hips. And when we get there, we separate the feet. Now, I tend to shuffle between the heels and the balls of the feet to get a nice healthy width here with the knees open. But it's fine if you're here and you go to get wider, right? So step or shuffle. Once the feet are in place, you start going down the outside of the legs. Now, ideally, all the way down, careful around the knees, both inside and outside, a lot less flush. Ideally, all the way to the ankles, and then to the inside. Right? So be careful on the inside, especially if you're wearing socks on like a hardwood or a tile floor. You can knock your feet out from underneath of you, so be careful there. Also, less flesh around the ankles. And then up the inside of the legs. Squatting a little bit into it as you get past the knees so you can get up high into the area of the quad, rolling across the front of the lower abdominal cavity, and back in this V, right, where the top of the thigh comes into contact with the pelvic bowl. Then we get the feet together, either step or shuffle, find a rhythm, and then add a bounce. And the bounce should be on the upbeat. So when the hands are coming into contact, I'm on the upside of the bounce. Sometimes people always go down. We used to do it on the downbeat for a while until I realized it wasn't really what the original had in mind. And we're there for a while. And this is another one where we're going to fade. Now, a word about going down the legs. Not everybody, when I said, when I went down there, I said it's supposed to be to the ankles. The reason I said that is some people can only bend so far. So what you do in that case is you go down the legs as far as you can, and then keep tapping on the last point you can reach. As you imagine yourself tapping the rest of the way down the outside, switching to the inside, even when you're imagining the tap, don't over-imagine the tap and knock your feet out from underneath of you. Coming up to the inside until those imaginary hands reach the same point your real hands are tapping. And then finish the tap, boom, boom, boom. Oh, there they are, they're there. And finish the tap the way the rest of us do. So I hope that made some sort of sense. I'm gonna get another drink. I'm gonna start with 30 seconds in the lower back, tapping. And then the pathway. And we'll do, a minute, 2 minutes on the front, and then we'll start our fade. So, need to get this somewhere where I can see it both in front and behind. Well, I'll just stay in front. I'll just turn back and forth. Yeah, you can tell these are well planned, right? Okay. So feet shoulder wide, parallel, starting our tap. Ideally with lightly closed fists. We can open up the sides. I would suggest this sort of internal karate chop kind of thing as opposed to here that puts too much tension in the shoulders. We're already beyond 15 seconds here. Again, you can move around so I can literally hit other points of the lower back for a little while. But really spend most of it right there. Rolling the hands back to the normal tapping position on the lightly closed fists, over the buttocks, to the sides of the hips. When you get to the sides of the hips, shuffle or step the feet wider and start down the outside of the thighs. Like stirring the ignored, if you find points left or right that are sort of thirsty, go ahead and hang out there for a while. Just remember what the pathway is. Don't go by something and then backtrack and go back to it. If you bypass something, finish the exercise, go back to it after. You want to pay attention to what things feel like while you're in the pathway of the tap. Again, if I can't reach the ankle, maybe I'm mid-calf and that's as far as I can go. I'm going to hang out there and imagine my hands going down the rest of the way. Like they're doing what mine are doing. I'm going to imagine them switching to the inside, not knocking my feet out from underneath of me. I'm going to imagine them coming up the inside. And when they reach that same point I had paused there, my real hands are going to join my imaginary hands. Coming on up Careful again around the knees, less flush. Start in a little bit deeper squat. It'll create a little bit more opening between the insides of the thighs and get a little bit higher up toward the perineum before you have to roll over the front of the upper thighs into that crease. When you get to that crease, bring the feet back to shoulder width, get a little bit of a rhythm, and again, rising in the bounce at the point of contact with the tap. And here we want to feel like the intensity of the tap is governing the intensity of the bounce, and the intensity of the bounce is governing the intensity of the tap. So they're not two things, they're one. If I'm bouncing a little bit deeper, I'm tapping a little bit harder. If I'm tapping a little bit harder, I'm bouncing a little bit deeper. If I want a little bit softer. And this is the whole body engaged in that bounce, in that compression and expansion. Not just governing this in my knees. It's like somebody, as I'm tapping, the tap and the bounce governed by the power of gravity. Somebody's not messing with it. Strengthening it as I go down, weakening it as I come up, strengthening it as I go down, weakening it as I go up. So the body is being pulled, compressed into the earth on the downbeat of the bounce and released from the earth on the upbeat of the bounce. We're only going to go for about 10 more seconds before we begin a fade. Now in this fade, the arms aren't going to elongate and hang, beginning the fade. When this fade ends, the hands will be resting against these 2 points left and right, which we have been tapping. And like the previous fade, we want to approach it with the kind of governance that allows for a very slow, very subtle slip. Almost really a small, slow, incremental evolution, if you will, from movement to stillness. So there's no abrupt, okay, I'm done. Still slightly a bounce, still slightly a tap, still slightly a bounce, still slightly a tap, still slightly bounce through the whole body, not just the legs. Still slightly a tap through the whole arms, not just the hands and the wrists, until it all comes to an end. Identify it, and it may be difficult. I feel like I sort of had a little sense of thud there at the end. I wasn't that happy with that stop that time. You may have even seen it. And then I moved to another massage. It's like sort of the end of the last. I can hang out right at those 2 points. I can spread sort of the warmth I've generated up toward the solar plexus and the Zhongdantian. I can go down a little bit into the tops of the thighs out. I like to imagine I'm actually massaging the Shen Yu cavity back here where we started the tap. From the front, I'm reaching through my belly and doing that. Breathing and letting the arms hang. Feeling what there is to feel. Pathway of the tap. Lower back. Feeling where there is to feel. I feel like the glutes really wanted me to hang out there for a while. There are points really on both sides of my thighs right now that, and I'm pretty sure I know why that feels that way. Still trying to figure out why my right inside calf always feels the way that it feels when I do this tapping exercise. I haven't quite put my finger on it yet. Maybe that's why it feels that way. I don't put my finger on it often enough. And there you go. Little cutting from awakening the chi the first 3 exercises, the tapping exercise, or knocking on the door of the chi, with activating the torso, stirring the ignored, and arousing the essence, and increasing the flow. So, as always, I hope you enjoyed our little shoe here this morning. I'm just going to put on my glasses if I need to hide anything. Hi, Steve. And no, don't really have to. So we're here, for the foreseen future on Mondays at 10 a.m. Again, just a reminder, Tuesdays at 10:15 are fading into the background as the program for West Babylon is scheduled to go remote beginning tomorrow morning. And I think that's about it. Hey, this went a lot longer than I thought it was going to. And I have somewhere to be in less than 11 minutes. So maybe I better say goodbye. As always, stay safe, especially if you're on Long Island and in the state of New York, pay attention to the New York State Forward plan and process, going out where there's going to be people, and keep your mask on, keep washing your hands, and keep listening to the medical professionals and scientists as far as when we can take the next step. And we will see you in the future. Well, again, I said this the other day in a YouTube video that we posted last week, that I won't see you. I don't even see me right now. But you will see me, hopefully. So until the next time, take care. Be safe.